So back in March, when we first learned about the Toxitron collection, we had a whole bunch of listings of future Wave 2 Toxitron collection items for this Walmart exclusive line. And one of those listings that we talked about was the potential Generation 2 Mirage. Now, for people that know the history of Mirage and his Generation 2 story, we'll just kind of go through it quickly. This was something we first kind of learned about in its existence back at BotCon 2006 in Kentucky. They had a huge display of tons of unreleased Generation 2 box art, and one of those was of a Generation 2 Mirage done in a fantastic, as I always called it, the watermelon color scheme, the Hubba Bubba watermelon color scheme. And we learned that there was this whole thing where there was all these early pitches in 1993 of what those Autobot cars were going to be in that first lineup, and originally we were going to get like Jazz, Mirage, and Sideswipe, and they had all these different color schemes than what we got in the end. And we never found out why they ended up going with Inferno instead of Mirage, but I personally think it was more probably just for a diversity of alt modes with that Autobot cars instead of just, let's say, 3 race cars. So, and that was that. We saw that years later, a collector by the name of Maz managed to get his hands on a hand-painted prototype, and we got kind of a look at what it would have looked like in hand. It was a little rough, obviously, for a prototype. It clearly saw very beat up throughout the years, but at least it gave us a look at how that hot pink and resonating green would work on that mold and everything. And that was that. And that's all we really knew of that version of that character. Again, relegated to being an unreleased idea from all those years ago. Couple years after that, of course, we had a TFCon exclusive third-party one based on that, which was a pretty good homage to it, but nothing else to be said. We fast forward to that listing that we're talking about, and I was hoping that if they do this color scheme, that they kind of find a marriage in between that of the Siege version of the Mirage mold and that of the Earth mode one, because there is little positives and negatives between the two, and I'll get into in a moment why. But so we finally have some images here today of both the robot mode and the alt mode of this G2 Mirage. This is very exciting, and they did a very good job. It's just, again, the mold choices and kind of what they did. I'm going to kind of nitpick it a little bit. Maybe it's because I love Formula One cars, maybe because I love something that's super accurate to its history and everything, but let's jump into it. So first, let's talk about the choice of the mold. So they went with a straight up 100% repaint of the Earth mode Mirage. Now, the Earth mode Mirage, we might as well just dial it back a little bit. So we had the Siege Mirage mold that debuted in 2019. That was the first version with Siege. And then they took that mold, they did a fan vote 3-pack, and that was the one that came with the Power Dasher, Aragon, and the Decepticon Impactor. That was the clear one, and that was the one that gave the toy-accurate head sculpt on it, which wasn't really noticeable because of the clear plastic and didn't really pop, but it did have a brand new head sculpt on it. Then the following year in 2020, we got the Netflix version with the Decepticon Mirage, and that was kind of the early history of that Siege mold, which was kind of a little different than the final one. Then we have the Earth mode Mirage. It made its debut in the Battle Across Time 2-pack. That was the Kingdom 2-pack that came with the Grimlock mold. 2021 release. This is where they retooled it a lot, removed all of that 5mm peg combat, pegs where you could plug a whole bunch of stuff on it. And in doing so, with retooling this heavily, it lost its ability to put his cannon on his shoulder to mimic how he looked in the show and on his original box art. So that was kind of lost, unfortunately, with that new mold. And again, it's a great mold. I love it, but kind of sucks that was lost in the process. They then took that mold. They did the Legacy Wreck and Rule collection in 2022. That's where we got the G2 Leadfoot, brand new head sculpt on it, but otherwise the same mold. And then, of course, the Velocitron Speedia 500 collection in 2022 of the GoBot Crasher. What they did with that one is they took the entire Earth mode mold, but instead used that toy-accurate head that we saw all the way back with the Siege Hollow version. And we finally got to see how that looks painted, and it looked kind of funky for Crasher. I think they should have maybe used the traditional Mirage head for a more feminine face, but it is what it is. That's what they wanted to go with. And so right away, just off the bat, that one original mold back in 2019 and its retools spawned 6 different versions. And now we're going on number 7. So it really shows how in 4 years, how you could really go very far with just one tooling. And here we have it today. Again, they're using that Earth mode version. So what kind of sucks right off the bat is you won't be able to put that cannon, that pink cannon with the missile on the tip, and put it on his shoulder to mimic that of that classic box art, which is kind of a bummer. Maybe I'll just figure out a way to just tack it on there somehow for display purposes. But that would have been really cool. But otherwise, I think they did a fantastic job. I love how they did the painting of the entire body and stuff. Every little, bit and piece was done very well. Obviously, they couldn't get stuff like, let's say, the crocodile deco that would have been on the side. They couldn't get it on the side of the alt mode here because the transformation is different. But instead, they managed to get it on the spoiler, and how the spoiler works out with the robot mode. Guess what? That crocodile ends up on the robot mode anyhow and matches it pretty well. I just love what they did. They put all the little paint deco there, the 188 on the chest, the way the pink matches up. The whole deco rollout and the whole plastic rollout is very accurate to that of the original toy itself and the original art. Obviously, there's some gang molded areas. You can't have the silver feet because the silver feet originally were the spoiler. So now you have the pink feet that's the gang molded from the toy. And of course, you can't have the pink hands that the original toy had. Because of the gang molding with the wheels, they have to have the black plastic hands. But that's it more or less. I would have liked it if they went with the toy accurate head sculpt. Go with a toy accurate head sculpt and then just make it all green. Like, don't even put the silver on the face. I want slavishly loyal box art accuracy. Have that tooling in there that could have had the siege mold a little bit just in the shoulder for the cannon. I mean, call me picky, but I would have loved that. And then it would have been so cool to just have that on display. But otherwise, this is fantastic. I'm living in a world now where I'm getting a G2 Mirage toy. And it's hopefully is going to be some easy way to get it. And it won't just be some kind of crazy exclusive or something. But I think this is fantastic. Obviously, this is going to be a Walmart exclusive in some shape or form through the Toxitron collection from what we saw in the listings. But this looks really good. I'm super excited about it. Even my little, quibbles aside, I think this looks great. I can't wait to see more of this. And again, number 7 now of this mold. It really shows how far you could go when you have one tooling 4 years ago and how much you could make out of it. The magic that is the current modern Hasbro Transformers team. The last thing I just want to cover is, so again, today was supposed to be a Transformer Tuesday. We didn't know what it was going to be. That teaser that we talked about mentioned, some kind of like deep disguise or whatever. Ultimately in the end, it was just a whole bunch of pre-orders of product we already we talked about with the fan stream. So starting today on Hasbro Pulse, as well as the other partners, there will be pre-orders for the Buzzworthy Bumblebee Rise of the Beast Voyager class Optimus Prime, the Core class Bumblebee from Dark of the Moon for Studio Series 86, the Studio Series 86 Voyager class Rhinox, the 2 gamer editions of both Megatron and Cliffjumper, and most importantly, that awesome Brawn figure that I'm super excited about, the Deluxe class Studio Series 86. So those are up also on pre-order, so go check those out if you are interested in picking them up. But a pretty great day in the world of Transformers. Otherwise, very excited about this G2 Mirage. Let me know what you think, and we'll talk again real soon here on the Transformers Slag podcast. See you then.